Well, good evening, everybody, and those that are watching online. Welcome to the Heart of God Family Worship Center tonight. We are airing Heart of the City, and we are excited to have the opportunity to be here on this evening. To those of that normally watch us on Wednesday night, we have interrupted our regular scheduled program so that we can address some of the issues that are taking place here in our city. Top of the order tonight, of course, is what's going on with our hospital. I'm excited tonight because we have some people here tonight that will help give us some direction. We have some of the nurses that are here, and certainly our guest is Johnny Corson, NAACP president here in Pottstown, and State Representative Joe Ciresi. I call him the visible man, not the invisible man. I call him the visible man because he's everywhere. Every time we come somewhere, he's always in town somewhere. But tonight, we're going to have a real conversation. It's going to be uncensored. We're going to have the conversation that needs to take place. There were a couple of meetings that took place. We want to be able to have some dialogue around what needs to take place here in our city. Of course, our hospital is very, very important. We have did a little research and found out that there in other places, when they begin to remove some of the departments from the hospital, that they are generally getting ready to close the hospital. Johnny and I and some of the other staff members from NAACP were able to meet with the hospital staff, the executive board that they had there on Tuesday, I believe it was, or Monday it was. We met with them. So tonight, we're going to have a conversation. Mr. Ciresi had a conversation. There's some things that need to come together. We thought that the community needed to know what is going on exactly, instead of hearing a bunch of rumors and what's happening or what's not happening. We want to really get into what's really taking place and then find out what can we do to stop what's happening in our city already. I've noticed over time that we are dealing with the spirit of abandonment. There's so many other things that have taken place in our city over the years that I feel like this is just another hit that that's getting ready to take place for us. And we want to be here to help our community. We're here for our community. We're here because we have some individuals that are near and dear to us, all right? So we're getting ready to start our conversation. I'm excited. Come on, put your hands together for our special guest. And those of you that are watching online and everyone that is here, would you do me a favor? Would you go out and share this broadcast right now so that we can get as many people watching as possible? Some people may have been a little deterred by the rain, but certainly they want to be able to watch online and be able to hear what's going on, because there won't be any rumors spread tonight. There will be a lot of facts that will be shared and some things that you might find very surprising. I was very surprised at the meeting that we were in, and tonight we want to communicate what's going on from the hospital, the nurses, and also what's going on in our community. Is that all right tonight? All right, so those of you that are watching us online, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Bishop Michael Anthony. I'm the host of Heart of the City, and we are broadcasting tonight live. Amen. It's live tonight. Uncensored. Uncensored, I might mention, is uncensored. We're going to have an intelligent conversation tonight about what's taking place with our hospital. So I'm getting ready to sit down here because I want to sit next to the great Joe Ciresi. I should be in the middle? No, I don't want to be in the middle. Well, listen, we got some stuff going on, right? And you had a conversation with some of the execs at the hospital, and then we had a conversation with them. One of you begin to tell us what's really happening, what's going on.
This is on, yeah. So thank you for doing this tonight. Johnny, thank you for being here. This is great. And all of you who are here in the community and online. You know, the biggest thing that we face, and now it's hit our community, is a crisis in healthcare. We are not unique. Pottstown is not unique to anywhere else that's been going on in the Commonwealth. And we saw a trend of hospital closures, and we all watched it in Delaware County recently when they closed down the hospital system in Crozier. But we've also seen a trend in the hospital system that we have here, where hospitals were closed. We saw 2 of them close in Chester County a couple years ago, Chestnut Hill, which was taken over again, and then we've seen the dismantling of the hospital that we have here. Now, I would think that the same conversation that we had and what we were told by the executive staff is the same one that you had, where they don't want to close this hospital. This isn't their intent.
Correct.
Right.
They asked us to take them at face value that they are not trying to close the hospital.
Right. And if we take people at their face value and we say they're telling the truth,
Sure.
that's one thing. But the second part of this is the dismantlement of services. So what do we become as a hospital? What services will we have here to offer any longer? And the question that came up at the table was myself and Senator Pennycook when we met with them was, if you were in this kind of dire straits, why didn't you come to us before an announcement was made and say, is there anything we can do as a state to help secure the hospital's future? And the answer was, well, we didn't know we were in this condition in the summertime when we met with everybody until we came here. And I was like, well, before an announcement was made, why wasn't there a conversation that ensued? And that was a big part of our conversation as we sat in the room with them. The other part of the conversation was, tell me how many people on the board of Tower Health reside in Montgomery County, let alone Pottstown. And the answer is no one. And to me, that was more telling.
Can you explain just for a moment the difference between being on the hospital board as Tower Health as it relates, or as opposed to those that are just on the board here at the Pottstown Tower Health?
So the Pottstown Hospital Board, I look as an advisory board to the big board, which is Tower Health. So it's like saying, I'm with Buick. Well, that's great, but GM is making the decision for what happens at Buick. So you can give your input for what you'd like to happen at Buick, but it's General Motors that's making the final decision. That's exactly what we have here. Pottstown Hospital Board, Myra Forrest, who has been a huge advocate of Pottstown forever, former superintendent of O&J, was a teacher here in the Pottstown area, is very involved, is the president of the board there, and that's wonderful at Pottstown Hospital. But the president of the board at Tower Health and all of the board members at Tower Health live in Reading. None of them reside here, let alone in Pottstown or in Montgomery County. So the decisions that they make, they're making in Berks County, looking at a spreadsheet on a piece of paper and saying, oh yeah, cut this, because none of your services are about to disappear. They're all coming from here. So if you've got money in the bottom line, so my argument was made of the board should consist of representation from Pottstown. If you're not going to go Pottstown, at least Montgomery County, where a decision can be made, because it's affecting our people, not the people who live out there. And it's also true that there's no one on the board from Chester County where Phoenixville Hospital is.
Okay.
So it's both. Their facilities have no representation. So it's something that I'm really bothered by. It's something that needs to be corrected, but what do we do right now? And that was the question that came up in the room and has been an ongoing conversation, is what do we do to maintain this facility being open? And like they said to the both of you, we're not closing this facility.
Right.
So I don't know what your take from that conversation.
Okay, you said something that was interesting, that you asked them how come they waited this long, and did they ask for help? And I believe you said the answer was they didn't know back in the summertime?
They didn't know in the summertime that they were going to be here financially, which I was a little perplexed by.
Well, that's not what we were told.
And we do have some notes.
And we have taken notes.
Good,
And,
because I'd like to hear this.
but
We have
before-
some notes.
And is anybody here from Tower Health?
Yeah,
supposed
the
to-
nurses are here from the Tower Health.
Huh?
Nurses are
No,
here.
the nurses are
No, not the nurses. They were supposed to send somebody from Miss Deesa Dickerson was supposed to come to be here today.
That's all right. She's not here, but come
She's
on.
not
Let's.
here. But I just wanted her, hopefully that she was here so she can hear this. But they told us that we have a summary of the notes that, the information that was given to us. And we asked about funding, and we asked about who did they reach out to, because that's one of the questions I asked them. I said, asked if Tower officials have reached out for funds from foundations, especially the Pottstown Regional Community Foundation, and did they reach out to our governor and Val? They said they reached out to them. No, they didn't get nothing. They didn't get a lot, or they didn't get nothing. They said they reached out, had a meeting with Governor Shapiro, had a meeting with Val Arcouche, and they were told there was no more money. So that's what they told us at the meeting, and I don't know when they met with them, but I asked them,
Okay.
I said, why did it take so long for you to try to stop the bleeding? What were you doing the past 5 or 6 years or longer? And they really couldn't answer that. And I asked them, did you make what steps did you make to stop the bleeding? For example, did you try to partner with a major healthcare system like UPenn? Did you reach out? You're partnering with all these different hospitals. Did you ask them for help? And I'm not sure what Mr. Stern said either.
Well, let me jump in right here, because one of the things that I understood from the conversation was this is a new regime. They have been there for 3 years, and the other regime had been there a little longer, of course, and none of the people from that board are on this present board. But here go the numbers, and this is what they shared with us. Over the last 3 years, the hospital has lost over $110 million over the last 3 years, and the hospital is on track to lose $40 million this year, based on the first 4 months of the year. Now, if we're looking at what's been going on and why that's happening, your concern is, okay, we didn't talk to anybody in the government to talk about getting help. My concern also is, how come that hasn't been communicated to us?
And that's one of the biggest things that
Right.
we expressed at the table.
Now,
we are left out.
Yeah, we were left out. Now, let me say this on behalf of Tower Health. They were very open at the table. We sat there for almost an hour and a half, almost 2 hours.
Supposed to be an hour meeting. We wound up having almost a 2-hour meeting.
2-hour meeting with them about the concerns that we had. And at the end of the meeting, my concern was, how come the community doesn't know this? How come we haven't heard this before? So who are the gatekeepers? Who are those that are supposed to represent? We're supposed to hear from the people that represent us as it relates to what's going on financially, because this is a big deal. Because you got the Hill School here, correct? So if a child gets hurt at the Hill School, what hospital are you going to send them to?
That's right.
If the kids from one of our elementary schools, God forbid anything happens, but things happen with kids. They break arms, they break, all kinds of stuff. So this is a real issue, because if they're saying they're not going to take the hospital, but what you're telling me financially, if we keep going this direction, then we won't be able to have a hospital here, right? So who is communicating? One, who's communicating to the legislators, but also who's communicating to our community? Because we don't know.
You have a hospital, so we can go back down to the hospital board of Pottstown Hospital. The board of Pottstown Hospital had no idea that they were going down this road. So just be aware, until the morning that we
Which
all heard,
board are you talking about?
the Pottstown Hospital board, not Tower Health.
Okay.
They had no idea that the Tower Health was going in this direction. And when we met with them in the summertime, they told us that the hospital was stable, because it did come up at the table. But Michael Stern has only been the CEO, I think, for a year. A year. So it was, who was she before? The name, Sue Parati. Sue was there all the other times that we had met with them. Michael came in about a year ago. So he inherited wherever they were in the process. What got me was, it's what you said, it's twofold. One, the board of that hospital, of Pottstown Hospital, had no idea what was happening. So Tower never told Pottstown Hospital how bad the situation was. And two, when we sat in that room in the summertime, they talked about another project that they wanted to see if we can get funding for. I can tell you definitively, they did not speak to Governor Shapiro. Definitively, they did not speak to the governor. They may have spoken to the governor's office, which I've been in constant contact with, but no one has spoken to Governor Shapiro, nor will they speak to the governor. This is a statewide crisis in healthcare that the governor is well aware of and is part of, but he is not speaking directly to any hospital in the Commonwealth, other than trying to figure out how we solve this issue throughout the Commonwealth. Because the deficiency that we see here, we're going to see it over and over again until we can get a place where this health crisis is solved. And one of the big issues that Tower brought up to us in our meeting was the way that hospital reimbursements work with the insurance companies. And this was the next thing I said to them, because I had the Hospital Association of Pennsylvania reach out to me after we had the press conference, and they wanted to go over terms of how hospitals are refunded. And I said, well, why does it take a hospital to cut all these services for you all to come to us and tell us that you've been having these issues? Why didn't you come to us, like you said 3 years ago, and lay out that if we don't put this on a road to being fixed, this is what's going to end up happening? So now you can come to us, but the ball is rolling down the hill. We can't stop some of these things that are happening. It's not only here in Pottstown, throughout the Commonwealth, because legislation is going to take a while to get through, and even at that point. So they have been quite upfront with those figures. Those are the figures that I've seen, just like you have now, in a conversation with the governor's office this afternoon, Before I came here, I spoke to the governor's office, and they said, we have seen this before. We have thrown millions into trying to preserve the hospital from closing, and they've closed. So they're gun shy too.
And have they given money to Tower before, the state of PA?
I think with the tower
Last year?
it was Chester County. No, when did they close the two in Chester County? Brandywine and Jennersville. It's been a couple of years, right? So they tried to preserve them. Last year was Crozier in Delaware County. I think it was almost 40 million that they gave them, and they ended up closing. So, you know, this is major frustration, because you're right. Why wasn't any of that relayed to anybody?
Right.
Why didn't the board of the hospital know this information? And from what I can tell, they didn't. So this goes back to what I said before about the tower board needs to have representation from this community, because maybe the conversation would have gone down a different path.
So let me ask this question. So our own borough council and those that govern our city are not connected with that type of information? Is that not how the government system works? I'm just asking because I don't know.
That's what we're concerned about. That's what the
doesn't
NAACP
work like
talked about.
It doesn't, and that's not, I'm not throwing anyone under the bus, but unfortunately these systems don't work like that. Nor is the city of Philadelphia involved with University of Pennsylvania Hospital.
But they said they asked the Health and Wellness Foundation for money.
Well, they could have done that. That has nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
That's a whole different deal. They might have.
Okay.
I don't know, how much did they ask him for?
They didn't tell us, but they said they were kind of like not giving any money.
Yeah,
There's a reason why that brought up, because as a cancer patient there, they used to have a massage therapist. And about 2 months ago, she told me that, a little over 2 months ago, that she's no longer getting her grant to do the massages. So I asked her, well, where you get the grant from? She said the Health and Wellness Foundation. And they said they're not giving out grants for that type of service anymore. And it's convenient that 2 months later, the cancer center announces that it's closing. So that's what I told that story to them, and I asked them, how much money have you seeked out money from foundations? And I asked them about the Health and Wellness Foundation. I asked them about PAID, and head of the Pottstown Hospital was on PAID's board.
Right.
And I said, well, did you ask Peggy Lee Clark for any resources to help direct you to get funding, to get money? And he really didn't answer that. So they are connected with the local government. But I don't know if they tell their business. I can't answer that.
Let me ask this question, because maybe you can help me with this, and I don't know a whole lot. So how does Pottstown focus on revitalization and not include healthcare or the healthcare system or the hospital itself?
And
I mean, you gotta hear what I'm saying, and I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus either. But I don't think we're out here not to address the things that need to be addressed. We can't just sweep it up under the rug. I don't care who it falls on. I mean, the reality is, you're telling me that we're doing all this revitalization downtown. All these things are taking place. We're bringing all these different developers. We got different investors coming in, and y'all telling me we don't know what's going on at the hospital?
Yeah, and I'm glad Bishop touched on that, because when people come to a community, they look at the health care. And I said to them, who's going to move to a community when you don't have no good health care if the hospital services are closing? Because the guy from the hospital, he said, well, we're building town. He was defending what Bishop was talking about, bringing all these restaurants in, and he brought up about luxury apartments.
Trying to get luxury apartments.
Yeah, so who's going to move into a luxury apartment when there's no hospital?
But that's another topic, but we won't deal with that
But
tonight.
that's what we touched on. But but see,
So-
but wait a minute, finish. But nobody knew that Health and Wellness Foundation was founded from the sale of our Pottstown Hospital. I don't know how many people in this room are aware of that. There's a few people that may be aware, but so that's what was disturbing myself and the members in the room on our side. Some of them did not even know that. So a foundation was set up for health, and it goes back to what Bishop says. You're putting all this revitalizing this and revitalizing that in this community, but nobody's thinking about our health care. And I actually talked to 2 people yesterday about this same thing, and they're more concerned with that tower overspent and overextended. But nobody really was addressing the needs of this community.
So you bring up look, we're all affected by this. I don't live in Pottstown, I live in Limerick, right? We don't have a hospital in Limerick. So either we're going
Yeah, but you're close to Phoenixville.
Well,
Right,
I'm
you're
just
in
as
that
close-
area,
I'm,
but-
I'm closer to
but-
Pottstown than I am Phoenixville.
Yeah, but, okay, so I'm glad you said that. I brought this up to them. The poverty rate in Pottstown is 19.7%.
Right.
The poverty rate for Phoenixville is 8.39%. The average household income for Pottstown is 56,000.
Sure.
The average household income for Phoenixville is 112,000. Limerick is 4.5 poverty rate. The average income is 118,000. The demographics for West Reading is similar to Phoenixville. And I brought that to Tower's attention, which spurred the NAACP to look at this, is that down in Georgia, the same thing happened. They took hospitals out of low-income black communities, and the NAACP and the state Democratic Party filed a claim against their tax status. And I brought that to Towers, that you're taking these services out of the community that has the highest poverty rate, because you can go, people who live in the low poverty rate, who make 100 and some thousand a year, they can access services a lot better than people who live in poverty. They can have the means to go to those places. And that's what I was concerned with Tower. That's what you're doing.
And you're right. And when we look at the statistics, it's the same thing we look at transportation. We have no
They brought
transportation.
that up.
It's a big fight about transportation that
What
exists
did,
out here.
what did they tell us about transportation? That now, if the infusion unit, in fact, does have to go to Phoenixville, which Johnny is a cancer survivor,
Yeah.
you're still getting infusions. My father-in-law just passed. He was a part of that infusion unit. But from what we're understanding, with those that need to find a place to go, now we have to figure out how we're going to get them there.
Exactly.
And now here.
They said your office was going to do it. They said your office was going to do it.
Yeah.
But watch this, y'all. Here's the problem. And this is why we need to be involved in what's going on. We're going to have to do more than just come out to meetings and throw up signs. We're going to have to mobilize ourselves to start dealing with the politics of this thing, because watch what has to happen. The way they explained it to us is that there's a line that's drawn in the sand between one city or one county and the other, and watch this. Nobody wants to cross that line as it relates to transportation.
Yes.
So I'm only going to watch it. So what's going to happen? I'm only going to take you so far. I'm going to give you a trans pass. You're going to get on and then go down to your infusion treatment in Phoenixville. So you need a trans pass to get back. This is not Philadelphia. You're not catching the bus and then going to the L.
Well, you're
All right,
not.
that's not going to happen.
So this is a major issue that we have brought up. As a matter of fact, the governor's office today I brought up about Transnet. I said the issue that we face right now is to this, that they can't be transported from Montgomery County to Chester County through the service that we pay for. Nor could anyone from Chester County be transported to Montgomery County. The bus literally stops at the line and says, we don't go over there. So then, not to get off the hospital, but I'll give you one example. The Senior Citizen Center, which is off of Moser Road, is literally 1 mile from the border of Chester County. If you live in Chester County, Rover is not bringing you over the border. So they have to go from North Coventry all the way down to the Phoenixville Senior Center, and vice versa on this side to come to this senior center. If you live in Montclair, they're not going over the border 1 mile to the senior center. So when I said to the governor's office today, because we had a conversation about what we can do to fund a way to save this hospital, I said, are you aware that Transnet doesn't cross county lines? And they said, what do you mean? I said, they don't cross county lines. This is your transportation for our seniors and our people of lower income to be able to go to doctors and grocery stores, and they're not going to be able to go to this other hospital. What you're going to have to do is now you're going to have to switch doctors and go to Jefferson, the former Einstein, to get treatment there, which is quite a hike from Pottstown.
So we're going to let let me get it right, because once again, I don't know. So Transnet is going to be willing to take the people from here all the way down to Einstein.
It's Montgomery County. So as dumb as it all sounds, and I agree.
But that's not Tower Health.
It's not Tower Health. You have to switch. And so I said today to the governor's office, they have to switch all your doctors to the Jefferson system. So Johnny's getting great care at Pottstown Hospital in the cancer ward. Now they close that and tell him, well, you can continue to go to Phoenixville, but he's got no way of getting to Phoenixville now because his transportation was through the county-run system of Transnet. So he goes, the only place we'll bring you is down to Einstein or Jefferson. but we'll refer to as Einstein for now because everyone knows that. So now he's got to switch all his doctors, the treatment plan that he might have had because of a transportation issue that works.
And one thing about, I got to say, the NAACP stance is not to beat up Tower and to tear them down. We want Tower to succeed.
Right.
And
Yes.
Bishop, we all said that at the table. We want you to succeed, but we have to be transparent to you to know what's going on. So I just wanted to put that clear. So I don't want nobody to say NAACP and Heart of God is out to try to tear Tower down. We support the nurses, we support the patients, we support the Tower Health, we support the community leaders, but we are just lost, as goes back to what Bishop said, but how come we where we are right now, we didn't know nothing about this? We should have known about this years ago. But I just wanted to make that statement.
Yeah, very important, just to reiterate that some of the rumors about what's happening at the hospital can be very detrimental to how people perceive that hospital and whether or not they'll go there. So if we're saying negative things about the hospital that aren't true, because there are a lot of rumors out there, all right? Now, there's some facts. We have a lot of facts right here, right now. We want to lay down on that right now, but there are certain things that we can't do. We can't say, oh, the hospital's not viable and it's not going to do that. There's some confusion as to whether or not the emergency room is going to close, and that kind of thing. That's not what we heard. What we need to understand is once again, we're not fighting against Tower Health. I'm not fighting against Borough Council. I'm not fighting against anybody. I represent the people that live here. That's our fiduciary responsibility. But what we have to understand is that if we speak negatively about the hospital, then what happens is people say, I don't want to go there. So then if they say they don't want to go there, they don't stop by there when they have a problem, then that hospital will close. So we could blow up our own.
Right, our own fate. And I think what's important, though, is the hospital has to speak positive about itself, too. The hospital has to take that line to also talk about the good services, the patient care that comes out of there, the nurses that work there, the doctors that work there. They also have to do that campaign. And all we've seen if this hospital is, one, you've cut down your services, two, we lost the lawsuit in the court system in the Commonwealth, which I think failed us in this community, to pay property taxes for the Pottstown community.
Explain that a little bit, Mr.
Yeah, because I asked.
Please explain
Yes.
that.
Yeah, before he explains it, one of the questions I asked was fair share. What's your fair share? Because the services you're supposed to provide to the community and free patient care, charity care to this community in lieu of paying taxes. So joking.
So one of the things they told us, which we were a little stunned by, they said this hospital is not having an issue because of the clientele that live in this community that don't have insurance. They said that has nothing to do with it. He said, as a matter of fact, we do pretty well in this community for that. Which you told us?
No,
he told
no,
you different?
No, yeah. Well,
See?
listen. Let me.
Go ahead, no, read it,
Let me give you this. Let me give you this, because I promised everyone at Tower Health that I wasn't going to say anything that we didn't already have from being in the meeting, because I want to make sure that we're clear. From what I'm understanding, the issues that we have, the hospital is not being reimbursed.
Yes.
What it costs to care for patients, caring for the uninsured. Right? If someone with no insurance comes to the emergency department, the hospital is required to treat them, but receive zero reimbursement. Now watch this. Independent Blue Cross sets its own reimbursement rates. Now here's what I understood about it. They gave us an example of UPenn and Jefferson in Philadelphia, which are about maybe 7 blocks apart.
7 blocks.
Right? So the reimbursements that they give to UPenn is different than what they would give to Jefferson. And watch this. It is up to that provider. They decide what level of reimbursement is going to be distributed. So there's no governance there. I don't feel like there's any accountability. Okay.
Not only that, the hospitals negotiate that. The hospital systems negotiate that also with the insurers. This is one thing Hap brought to me, and this is one thing we talked about, is we need a law that says you can't do that. You can't say that his hospital is going to get $6 a patient, whatever it is, for that service, but his is going to get $15. Well, how is that fair to the community? It's the same way we look at fair funding for public education. You can't say that a school district in Allegheny County is going to get $3,000 a student, but equally a school district in Montgomery County is going to get 10, and not look at every student as equal. It's the same thing we see here in the hospital system.
Yeah.
What has happened over time, and I haven't been on the insurance commission for the state or an insurance committee.
So there's a commission?
Oh, there's a commission for the state of Pennsylvania.
Okay, so see,
there's
look at what
committees.
we need to know.
Right. So now, and I met with HAP and I went, wait a minute, how do we even this out? Because if they're telling us if they got the same reimbursement, you're talking about Philadelphia. They didn't tell you about the reimbursement for Reading and this hospital.
They did say that Reading and Phoenixville will get a higher
Higher rate
reimbursement
than
Pottstown.
Right, which was like, why? Why is Blue Cross, IBX, as they refer to it, not giving you the same reimbursement? I said, and this is where I took offense in that room and said, why didn't you come to your state legislators and say, this is where we need help? We need help because this is our reimbursement. I don't know what your reimbursement is. We don't go to every business or anything and say, well, what are you getting reimbursed? You should have come to us and said, you know what? We're getting $15 a patient in Reading and $10 in Phoenixville and $3 in Pottstown.
So what is the threat? Let me ask this real quick. What is the threat if a hospital, like you just said, in Reading or Phoenixville, we'll use simple numbers. If Phoenixville gets $5 and Reading gets $7, and the insurance provider decides that Pottstown only gets $2, how come they can make that decision by themselves? Why is that? Why is the insurance provider able to make that kind of decision? What we heard Mike, Mr. Stein tell us that the system is broke.
He said it's broken.
Yes.
Well,
He doesn't know if they're going to get paid.
there's a systemic problem in a whole lot of areas. So, but
He said that.
you know, but that's what he said. So, how can that be from any level, from legislation all the way down? How
Federal
do
to
we
state
allow
level.
that?
Well, we shouldn't allow it. Okay. And it's something that we have railed against. So I'm going to give you another situation. You call an ambulance here in Pottstown. The ambulance shows up to your house. It's a $1,200 bill for that ambulance.
Sure, my mother has to take them sometimes. She's 85.
You call an ambulance in Limerick. The ambulance shows up. It's $1,700. You call an ambulance in East Norrington. The ambulance shows up. It's $2,100. I'm just giving numbers. How could the same ambulance service be $1,200 here, $1,700 in Limerick, $2,000 down the road? Why isn't it standardized across the board? Now, that same ambulance service, the insurance company decides how much they're going to pay them back. And we look at this as legislators, and now, yes, we become the majority in the House by one vote. And we go, well, this isn't fair. Not only is it not fair, you're not reimbursing the ambulance companies. So we have a crisis of this hospital. We also have a crisis of our ambulance services are in the hole for $150,000. We had one ambulance service come to us a year ago and say, we're going to close. Not in this area, in another area. And we said as a state, we can't give you $250,000, like just hand you over $250,000. So we've pushed legislation through. And where has it gone? I'm going to say it to everybody that sits here. It sits at the door of the Senate. I'm not passing the buck because it's all of our responsibility. But this issue that we have with this hospital, I was never made aware of the reimbursement factor that it's such a difference of reimbursement between these three hospitals. And does it go back to Johnny's point, and I'm going to say it, is it something that you just want to close this no matter what? Is that part of what this equation is?
Well, we didn't get that impression. I
don't
felt
get that either,
I
not
felt
from
they were.
power.
I thought they were very sincere while we were in the room.
Right, and I think they are.
But we told them that because they asked me to advocate for them. I said, you put me in a tough situation because I'm a cancer patient, and I got diagnosed at Pottstown. I got my stem cell at Penn, but I choose Pottstown because the way the nurses treat. My dad was there. I give an example of my dad before when he was alive. Whenever he got sick, he wanted to go to the 5th floor of Pottstown Hospital because of Daytrell and Renee Palucci. He loved the care that they gave him. And a lot of the people that I dealt with in Pottstown, certain nurses that work at the hospital, they are from this community. So they like being there in that Pottstown Hospital because they have a connection. And so it was personal to me when I got diagnosed with cancer. And I told them, I said, I could have went to Penn's Infusion, but I liked the staff at the Pottstown Fusion Center. And I actually, Bishop said he lost his father-in-law, but Precious Days, like my uncle, him and I sat side by side getting chemo together. And so it's really personal when I watch somebody that I love pass away. And when you have a connection in that cancer center, you walk past and you see how some of the people, how they struggle to get there, how they need help to get there, and you just don't know what to say to them. And sometimes we just do this to each other. We just give the nod or the clenched fist. So I let them know it's real personal, but now you're upending me. So I may use 2 hours pay, but if I have to go to Phoenix for a Reading, now I may lose a day's pay. But what about the people who don't have a car? The people who don't have the access. So I said to them, you want me to advocate for you, but you're closing a crucial service, critical service that this community needs. So that puts me in a situation to go face my fellow brothers and sisters fighting cancer, the nurses in the community. You're advocating for a hospital that's cutting this crucial service out. You're cutting ICU out. And that, they didn't know what to say to that. You know, we want to support them, but the decisions that they made makes it very difficult to try to support them because the end game could be closing, but they say they don't want to close.
And I think that I'm going to go back to the board. I'm going to go back to when you don't have a board of people from this community who sits on the main board, you have no relationship with the community. We could all talk about relationships. I've been stopped more times than not in the last month since this all came out, or less than a month, from people who told me they had wonderful experiences at Pottstown Hospital. Now, every hospital, anyone dies in the hospital, you had a terrible experience there. I mean, I don't mean to sound cold or callous. Death is unfortunately what happens in life. So every hospital in the world, you're going to go and have somebody pass away from. I think what the issue is, and I have to take them as being sincere, like you said. Yeah. One thing that was said to me in that room is if we wanted to close this hospital, we could have closed it already, and we would have taken the hit and it would have been gone. We're trying not to close this hospital. And we got to believe them. And you were there. You saw the same thing I did for your meeting, and you're saying the same thing. The issue that we have is in the reimbursement of insurance. Because we were told when we met with them, if we got 30% more in the way this hospital is reimbursed, we would be stable.
Well, Bishop, can you touch on the Medicaid, or should I?
I'll touch on it just a little bit, but watch this. Let me bring this up about one of the rumors that are out there that we need to dispel right now. Rumor that inpatient surgery is being halted. They said that is absolutely not true. All right, so that's something that could deter people from going to the hospital. The other thing is that they talked about the ICU and that it wasn't populated enough, but also the maintenance or the maintaining of the equipment because it's very sensitive equipment. Now, I had to ask some of the nurses in my own church, you know, because they had to school me because I don't know what's going on, but they were absolutely right? Now, here's the other thing. We have nurses that are now out of jobs. Yes. These are people that have families, right? And all this is going on right now as well. But they shared with us that there is a huge disparity of individuals who sign up for Medicaid. Am I correct?
Yep.
So we're only in Pottstown, or the area, we're only at 5% signed up for Medicaid. We need at least 10 or 11%?
10 to 15%.
10 to 15% to be signed up for Medicaid, because then there is another program another program that we would be eligible for that helps out with medication. There's a different type of reimbursement there and would make medication even cheaper. So we're not even eligible for that. But what are we doing? Why are so many people in our city not signed up for Medicaid? And what are the challenges there? Do we need to help people? Are they getting kicked out of the system? So forth and so on. Also, what the hospital did share with us is that the reason why they did some of these cuts now is because we're getting ready to hit January 1st. And the big, beautiful bill is going to do something. So in order for the hospital not to close earlier or to close, period, they were being proactive. My challenge is the regime that was here before. If this regime here now, and I believe what they said, if this regime here now shared with us the challenges they had going into this opportunity to take over the hospital, my problem then is, how come our city government was not more aware of what was going on with the regime that was there before? Now, there's no way you can overlook that. There's no way you can overlook that, because if you work for me and you manage my department store, and I come in and there are losses in my department store, you have to explain to me where those losses took place. You have to explain that to me. That's just fundamental to me, all right? Because we have our finger on the pulse of everything else, but we didn't seem to have our finger on the pulse as it related to this, right? So, and then explain to us, because, and maybe I'm wrong, because, I want to be corrected, that the sale of the hospital, before the sale of the hospital, that was over, is it true that was over $1 million or $900,000 a year of tax income, tax revenue? Is that how I should say that?
Yeah.
We lost that in a city that's only 5 square miles. All right?
When the hospital went nonprofit, this hospital went nonprofit, the school district and the borough and the county sued them because now they didn't have to pay taxes any longer. And they said, there's no way. When Tower Health acquired this hospital, I think Tower Health had $1 billion in assets, and they bought 5 hospitals, which they overextended themselves. This was the former organization. This was Clint Matthews, I think, was the CEO at the time. They were tons of money, and they went and bought systems all over the place. Why he did that, nobody knows, because Michael will tell you, we would have never done that. But of course, that's playing Monday morning quarterback. You weren't there, so you don't know why he did it. So the borough, I think it was a 5-year lawsuit, if I'm not mistaken, and the mayor's here, she might remember, if anyone from the school district is here. And the court system said, Tower's right, they don't need to pay property tax. So Pottstown Borough lost, the school district lost in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the county, Montgomery County, lost for an organization that had $1 billion when they first came in. They paid nothing. There was no pilot payment in lieu of taxes put in place. It was just, you don't have to do that. And they had been escrowing because under the judgment, they would have had to put that money away because if they would have lost, they would have had to pay all the back taxes. So all that money that was there went back into the system. And my question came up, and I did say this, and I'll publicly say it, in the nurses' negotiation, that you had that money that you escrowed that now is back in the system. So you gained back a few $1 million. Why are we even negotiating? This money is here, it should be reinvested. One thing I said to them when we met, I said, and it's back to what you're saying, you're only as good as the information you're fed. So this is a corporation for whatever it's worth. Sure. So when you meet with them and they don't bring up that they're in the dire straits, and you're hearing, well, things are going well, we don't have a right as a state, nor as a federal government, to look at their books unless they're getting money thrown in from the state and the federal government. So we don't look at their books. So, okay, things are well. But I said, what investment have you made into the Pottstown community? You don't pay property tax. You don't invest in our schools.
You asked that same question.
Yeah, it's called fair share. Yeah.
Right. And that's why I said, where are the people of this community? And I'm going to say beyond Pottstown, the greater Pottstown community. So the Coventrys and Hanover and Limerick and the Pottsgroves. Where have you made an investment to show that you care about our people?
And that's one of the things. But as far as money, I looked this up, and I didn't get the chance to ask Tower this, but how much COVID relief funding they got. Did you ask that?
We knew they got a lot in COVID relief.
And I forgot to ask that. And also, back in 2020, they made $203.7 million. They sold some assets to Oak Street Real Estate Capital, 24 properties and 17 medical office buildings. And I didn't get to ask that because I wanted to say how much of that money went to Pottstown. Now, if that's correct, they made $203.7 million in 2020.
And then they closed the 2 hospitals in Chester County at the same time, and Chestnut Hill, I guess, they sold.
So it puts us in a difficult situation,
right.
As far as
it goes back
advocating for them.
Right, and it's true. How do you advocate for
Yeah.
them? And again, I'm going to press, and I'm going to press it hard, that until we get representation, and if we want to press this as a community, this is where we should be, on the board of Tower Health, we are never going to see people care about our community. And when I asked that question in that room, I was calling all the board. And I was stunned to look at that board, and every single one of them lived in Reading, or the Reading community. And I said to Michael at the table, how do you represent this community when you have nobody from this community? And he said to us, it's a fair question. And he said, it's something I need to advocate. I mean, he works for the board, for whatever it's worth. Yes, he's a board member, quasi-board member, because he's an employee, but he works for the board.
I got to say something about, there's one in the notes. One of our members, Larry Cohen, he asked if there was a role for state government. And Makovich detailed meetings and conversations with state officials, including Health Secretary Val Cruz. and they said, keep hearing the same message, there's no money available. Stern said that to us in
Right,
the meeting.
and he's not lying about that. There's
And he also did say that almost every hospital in the region has had major layoffs in the past year.
Yeah, so we also saw Jefferson laid off 800 employees, I guess 750, and there was talk of a possible another layoff. We have a major crisis in healthcare. It is across the Commonwealth, it's across the United States, and as you alluded to, the big beautiful bill is only going to make it worse. Funding is disappearing. We don't have the capacity as a state to fund the healthcare throughout the Commonwealth. There's no way. There's not enough money to be able to do this. Now, we're losing 85 nurses or 88, what is it? What's the number in Pottstown? 70, I thought it was in the 80s. We are losing nurses and doctors. What was it? We're retaining some. Okay, but the original number was 80. We're losing doctors and nurses to other states. But as bad, and I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything, as bad as it is in Pennsylvania, it's even worse in some other states. Now, there's other states that are doing better than us, but we have an aging population. What I was getting at before, the numbers of reimbursement to Pottstown Hospital, we brought up about the social economic area that we reside in, is that a factor? And they said, you would think that it would be much lower for our reimbursement. He said that is not the factor. Their factor is more so in what they're being reimbursed for other things. It's not the community. He said, because and that's what I was talking about, doesn't score as low as you would think it would. You say, well, social economically. He said, it's not that. It's something like a cancer drug that they spend $2,000 on, and their reimbursement is so low from the insurance companies that they can't afford to keep doing that. That's where the fight is. The fight resides not only for this hospital, but for all medical systems in insurance reimbursements. What are we doing for insurance? And that's the fight that I feel that we need to take on if we're going to see these systems retained, because who knows how long or how far away we are from seeing Phoenixville go down the same path.
Yeah, I heard that yesterday. Some people think Phoenixville is next. Well, let me ask you a question. I looked it up, that ways that nonprofits can get out of debt, and one of them, like I said, about the merger and risk management.
Yes.
And but bankruptcy, is that true? Can a hospital file bankruptcy and then reset? Could Tower Health have filed bankruptcy and then kept all these services because they would start all over again?
This is one hospital. So Tower Health, you're talking the whole system. The whole
That's
system.
what I'm asking. I don't know if
Yeah, I think this
the
is.
whole system, or could they just
I
file
don't think they
bankruptcy?
can file bankruptcy with, I don't know. I don't know bankruptcy law well enough.
Yeah.
Maybe there's an attorney here.
The mayor says she's an attorney.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, I don't think
Huh?
we get bankruptcy law.
Okay.
It's a great question to be able to say.
Yeah, because I looked it up online, and that's one of the things that a hospital can do to get out of debt.
The problem is when you do that, you're going to cut services right away, and you're going to cut staff, because that's another way that they're going to retain.
Oh, I was wondering if they could do that and keep the services, because they just start all over again.
Right, they could.
Listen, at this time, let's, for a moment, are there any, Crystal, are there any questions?
Yes. We have a few questions here. One is the issue reversible? Are we gaining any change at this point?
Is the issue reversible? Well, none of us can tell you where their heads are in that. Is it reversible if we can come to the table? And go ahead.
Stern said one thing. He told us that the cancer center costs $15 million to run it. They only get reimbursed for 12. So he said, if we can come up with half of that, he gave us his word, they would keep the cancer center over and they would absorb the other half.
He would split the baby.
He would split the baby.
So they're asking.
So I've been asking for money. I met with some people.
$2.5 million.
$2.5 million.
And I asked some
3 to
people
5
yesterday.
years.
I asked some people yesterday I met, asked them could they help me. They was like, no. I've been making phone calls. They told us to call. Who's the senator? He has a hedge fund.
Oh, McCormick.
But they told us to check with Larry Cohen. Suggested we call McCormick. I called McCormick. I didn't get an answer back. I left a message with the chair of the health facilities because I want to bring people from Harrisburg here to talk to us to see what means and options that we have to keep the hospital open and keep it going.
So
Now, that's
did-
just the infusion unit, though.
Right. So I
Yeah.
did speak to the governor. Like I said, that's what we spoke about this afternoon. They're asking for $2.5 million for 3 years, that they would keep the facility open. It ran at 2,200 patients, 15,000 visits, which is 50% of what it could run at. That's where they were running at. So those are the real numbers. So when I called the governor's office, I spoke to our liaison with the office. I said, look, because I called Michael a few days ago and I said to him after our conversation, I said, look, Michael, you've got to do a good faith. What do we need to do in order to keep the cancer ward open? We can talk about ICU over here, because I don't understand how if you cut down to 6 beds, it's the same fee as it is for 16.
I don't understand that either.
I don't understand that
Math
at all.
don't add up.
I can't grasp that. But maybe the nurses understand that. I don't. Right, but I don't understand how if you cut it in half, the price doesn't go down. But I'll put that here for a minute. But for the cancer ward, and he said, we had the conversation, $2.5 million for 3 years per year. We'll maintain the other part of it, and in 3 years, we think we could be solvent, that we won't need the money from the state anymore. So I made the pitch tonight to the governor's office and said, $2.5 million is what they're telling us that they would need to keep this open. And the governor's office response to me is, we will take this up to see if we can do it, but we've seen this play out before. They gave $40 million to Crozier, and they closed. So I'm just telling you. And
They have to trust us. The governor's office has to trust this community.
Well, the governor's office has to trust Tower Health.
Yeah.
That's who they have to trust.
Wow.
They trust the community, but you've got to trust the system that you're putting the money into. And that's the fight that we can make. And that's the fight that I will even make on my own side of this aisle with my caucus, is to say, how do we get them $2.5 million? Because if they're good to their word, and they would have to list the provisions that would have to be met in order to get the money from the state. But again,
where's the county out of this?
the county is, well, the county,
Because they said they don't get nothing from the county.
they just got refinanced in the bond with the county. But the county hasn't been involved in this process at all, as far
Why,
as I'm concerned.
we have a county health department. How come they're not
The health
involved?
department doesn't fund hospitals.
I mean, but they give money. Don't they give out grant money?
They get, well, no, they don't give grants like that to the hospital. As far as I'm concerned, again, county government, the 3 commissioners are well aware of what's happening here. They were made aware after the conversation that the senator and I had with them. I called all 3 commissioners and said, this is what we were just told.
Okay, the reason why I asked that, they brought a hotel and they put the homeless in the hotel was I'm glad they did that. So if they got the money to buy a hotel, and that's cost millions of dollars to maintain that for I don't know how many years, so they don't have no money they can set aside?
They reimburse money for homelessness.
From the federal government.
From the feds, and there's something comes from the state, and that's where they put that money. They hold the bonds, I think, with the hospital. That was what they just they refinanced the bond with the hospital recently, 4-year contract.
I forgot. We interrupted her. She may have more questions.
No, hold on. Give me one more second. Let me ask the question. The banks, is it called CRA money, Justin? Is it possible for banks to collaborate on CRA money to give us what we need here in Pottstown to do something like that? Is that something that would be a viable solution, at least a Band-Aid for now? Because CRA money, there's a lot of CRA money in banks. Am I correct? Give it to him. He know what he's talking about, too.
He's going to repeat this in case all those who didn't hear it.
That's all right. Give it to him. That's all right. But nobody's on point, so.
All right. So the CRA is the Community Reinvestment Act, which is the responsibility for corporations to serve LMI areas. So in this case, right, Tower Health would have a CRA to the community of Pottstown. What does that look like, or how does that look for the community of Pottstown? How does that play out? How do they see those services from the CRA?
If Tower would apply for something like that?
So it's not an application. So, like, for example, Citizens Bank, there's a CRA Act. They have a responsibility to do things in the communities that they serve because of the LMI areas. So in cases of Tower Health, because they probably switched to a nonprofit, maybe that doesn't apply. But if they were a for-profit corporation, they would have a responsibility just like serving.
If they were a for-profit organization, they'd have a responsibility.
So it's not CRA money.
No, you can't. Again, I can't speak for that, but they're a nonprofit, which is a big fight. Is they're a nonprofit?
Right.
How? How do hospital systems go nonprofit? There's a lot of things that have been questioned about nonprofits that you're going to start hearing more and more in the borough about, because it's a major issue for the borough of Pottstown and throughout the Commonwealth, the nonprofit status. Millions of dollars are being lost.
Right. So, follow-up question: what agreements are in place with the insurance companies that are reimbursing the corporations or nonprofit corporations in the area? Like, is there anything in place at like the county, state, or federal level for that?
As far as the health insurance reimbursements?
Right.
Well, those are negotiated with the system, the hospital system. Like we said, Reading, Phoenixville, and Pottstown are 3 different negotiations. So that's what they negotiate. Their hospitals negotiate that. There was a time that we heard that they took some of the negotiation out of Pottstown and put it into Reading to make Reading look more profitable. We had heard that at one time too, and I know it came from, you're agreeing, and that's what we heard too. So they have the ability to renegotiate with these companies. What they're saying now is that they can't get the money out of the biggest insurer, which is IBX, Blue Cross Blue Shield, I guess, or however it works, for the same amount. Even they said if we got 30% more, this hospital would be more viable.
Okay. So one thing you had mentioned, you had shared an example that when my Uncle Johnny said that the poverty rate in Pottstown was 19.4, yet the insurance company only reimburses the hospital $2 per patient. Could there be something like a progressive tax in the higher counties that are earning more income? So like Limerick is averaging $118,000 a year annually for a household. Could they be reimbursed at $2 per patient, and you reimburse the Pottstown area $19 per patient?
Well, I don't negotiate that. That has nothing to do with me. I mean, that has nothing.
Who would we need to
that's
talk
the
to about
To
that?
negotiate in person.
It's the insurer. It's the hospital. The hospitals negotiate that.
Well, and watch this. The other thing is Tower Health is a system altogether. So
Exactly.
Phoenixville, the way they explain it, Phoenixville, Pottstown, and Reading. If something's not happening here in Pottstown, Phoenixville and Reading would cover it. So overall, what they're saying, the system of Tower Health is being challenged right now. And the only way to keep this hospital from closing was to be able to make these cuts now before we get to the big, beautiful bill. That's what they were saying.
Yeah.
The problem is, and yes, we are sitting in Pottstown right now. The problem is way beyond us. Now, we need to figure out what we're going to do here. But if we're going to look at this and we're going to be honest, this is a massive issue in the United States of America and for our Commonwealth that we have warned is coming down the pike for a long time, but it's been falling on deaf ears. When we sold off hospital systems to corporations, when we sold insurance corporations, I'm going to give you an example of insurance.
Yeah.
Something you're aware of. Why did I get into politics? In 1998, my wife got sick. We were living in Florida, and she got heart failure, and she was dying. And she was told, you need a heart transplant. But you had to go through insurance for approval. And she was at the University of Miami at the hospital. We had her transferred, which was a big fight from a community hospital because they couldn't do what she needed. So we transferred her 45 minutes away, which they told me they weren't going to pay for a transfer because there was no need for it. And I said, I'll pay what I have to pay to get her there. And I think it was United Healthcare or one of them at the time. And I called up and I said, I don't understand why my wife has been denied a procedure to work on a heart transplant. She's not going in to have cosmetic surgery to look better. They're talking about a heart transplant. And I have to believe this in my heart, that the woman put me on hold, but she put me on the speakerphone. And she turned to the woman next to her and said, why was this denied when no one even looked at the file? Why was it denied when no one looked at the file? Because you know what? If my wife were to pass away, that $1 million heart transplant would be off the table. The $1 million they would have had to reimburse the system would have been off the table. So our issue lies in insurance.
Right.
Why are we denying the reimbursement? Why is it when a doctor says that Johnny needs this treatment, an insurance company can tell him, no, he doesn't. An actuary or an attorney, no, and I'm nothing against the attorneys who are here. I don't mean it like that. Why is it that we allow them, instead of the physician who studied or the nurse who's at the bed of the hospital saying, this patient needs this service, why are we allowing an insurance company to tell us this? And this is where the fight has become. This is when I heard that this was a reimbursement and it's with IBX. Well, why isn't IBX at the table? Why aren't they here? So I've asked for a meeting to say, How do we get reimbursement for this hospital to be equal to what you're giving to Reading, or what you're giving to Phoenixville, or what you're giving the University of Pennsylvania, or what you're giving to Lehigh, which is now Jefferson? The other thing we're seeing is you're seeing all the small hospital systems be bought up by the giants. And what's running them? The insurance companies. So Governor Shapiro, a couple of years ago, took on UPMC, I think if I'm not mistaken. And there was a major lawsuit with UPMC because they weren't accepting certain insurance, and he won. But it took millions and millions and millions of dollars, and I think 3 years, or 4 years, I think he was the Attorney General when he did it, to finally see this happen. So what can we do here? We need $2.5 million to get what Johnny did.
That's an
I've been
immediate
answering,
problem.
But
Go ahead.
one thing about I want to get this out. When I filed a complaint with the Attorney General's office concerning this issue, I asked them, I let them know we need our elected officials to pass Governor Shapiro's Health System Protection Act. They plan to give the Attorney General more power to review hospital sales and closures. Where does we stand with that? in
Bill,
Asbury?
if I'm not mistaken, I think it was a Borowski bill. Is that who it was?
I'm not sure. I know it was. I thought it was Governor Shapiro's.
Well, it's the
Health
governor,
Systems
but the
Protection.
governor can't, so a member has to run the bill, and I think it was Lisa Borowski, and it passed the House to allow that. I think we did that a few months back.
Are you talking about House Bill number
Yeah, whose bill is
832?
that?
That was presented to the Committee on Health on April 1st.
And whose bill is it?
It doesn't. It was introduced. You're on there,
I'm on it, but I'm not the main. Who's the first person? I can't see.
O'Mara.
You're on there, Joe.
Yeah, I know I'm on it. All right. So it's, yeah, here
you
I
and
am down here.
You and Malcolm Kenyatta.
But look at who's on this bill. Do you see?
There's a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, but what's missing?
I don't know. I don't know. Hey,
These are all Democrats.
okay. So
So the Democratic bill went through the House and passed, if I'm not mistaken. Jen's bill, I thought it was
right.
Borowski's, same Delaware County, so I knew, at least I got that right. Passed the House, has not passed the Senate.
all right. So then, why isn't Tracy here?
I can't speak.
I let Tracy know about this.
I know
Senator,
the
she
Senate
met with
wasn't-
Tower.
Yep, they were.
And
I know they were in
and I
session.
expressed
but I have no
disappointment with
idea.
that.
You'd have to ask
Also,
Tracy.
I expressed disappointment that you and her both met without us.
Well,
to be
yes,
honest.
and we do meet without you.
Yeah, I
do
understand
meet.
it, but I
I
thought
mean,
that we're
But
more
at that
yeah.
meeting, he told us we're meeting with, these are the organizations
Yeah.
that we're meeting with. We said, fine. We said, we don't need to be in the room when you meet with them. You meet with them, and then we talked about what was said at the meeting. We do meet. I do meet with them. I meet with a lot of people.
Yeah. I just wanted to get that out. I'm being transparent.
No, that's fine.
Because I got the backing of the state and OACP.
Hold on,
national
y'all.
office.
Wait a minute. Hold on. So get your point out here because
Okay.
how many more questions do we have?
We have quite a few. One of the questions that went along with the gap in the funding was, can someone like Fox Chase combine and maybe partner up to help with the cancer center, like Fox Chase Center? Is it
That's what I
possible to
asked,
get them
'cause
involved?
But what did they tell us? That the quote was that they're intelligent people and they would see that this would be a bad investment.
Yeah, because they have a whole bunch of partners that they partner with: Drexel, Healthcare, UPenn, for cancer, Temple. And I asked them, how come they didn't reach out and ask them to help absorb the services and the capital access? And they said just what Bishop said.
This is the thing. It's a money entity. We keep forgetting. Like, we all see this as a human condition. It is a corporation, no matter how you look at it. So exactly what he said. They're not going to look at partnering up with something that they're not going to make money from.
Yeah, because it's not a relational issue. It's
Right.
Any more
It's
questions?
X's and O's.
I have quite a few. I'm gonna put them all together for the transportation. There is a crisis. No, that just came up. I'm sorry. Hold on here. Okay. If there's a crisis in the medical field, how is it possible for a new hospital built near Gilbertsville that only takes certain insurance? That's one of the other ones.
Are you talking about the Lehigh Valley?
Yeah, that's
emergency?
That's
There's
Lehigh
one right
Valley.
here on 100. I guess
Yeah,
we're
it's
talking
an
about the one-
emergency.
Yeah.
It's an emergency room.
It's like a glorified,
Yeah.
almost,
And that's Lehigh Valley.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's Lehigh Valley, so.
But they invested. They did it. They made that investment into that facility. It's not a hospital, from what I understand. It's just a
Just
walk-in,
emergency.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Had 10 beds, but then they transferred out overnight. Yeah, so it's not a permanent facility.
And that's Lehigh Valley. So what is the
Well, that's in Montgomery
fin-
County now.
Is that Montgomery County?
They opened in Montgomery County. They opened in
Okay.
Gilbertsville.
Yeah.
Wow.
Gilbertsville and
Yeah.
over. Gilbertsville, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I brought that up. Somebody said that it was put there for the wealthy people. I heard that yesterday.
Here's a transportation question for someone here. You said Transnet is willing to transport patients to Einstein. I'm a wheelchair patient and can't get pickup, drop-off hours because fleet is limited.
Yep. Fleet is limited because funding is limited because we didn't pass an act in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to fund transit. We all see it with SEPTA. SEPTA is not the only issue. It's transit throughout the state of Pennsylvania because we couldn't get the vote to take skill games, which we were making no money from, which pry on people who are poor, and we have them in little stores and in gas stations. We couldn't tax those because we couldn't get the vote on the other side of the aisle to put that through. We lost out on hundreds of millions of dollars that would have gone towards
Can you
transit.
repeat that one more time?
Yeah. Hundreds of millions of dollars we have left on the table for I call it a slot machine. They call it a skill game that you go to your gas station.
Oh, okay. Is that what you're talking about?
Right.
Place where they play the cards and the.
Right. It's one thing in the Legion halls or that type of stuff that you might.
They're everywhere now.
Right,
So,
they're everywhere,
So we
which
don't
is wrong.
benefit from that at
We
all.
benefit nothing. So just know that they are not taxed. The casinos are taxed, but they aren't taxed because we couldn't get that across the aisle. We fought for that to get across the aisle. We also left on the table the funding of, whether we agree or disagree, and I'm still on the fence, I gotta be honest, recreational marijuana. Hundreds of millions of dollars. There was probably over $1 billion left that could have gone toward Transnet and some of these other things that we're talking about in the budget. He had his hand up over
When
here.
it comes to the county limits with the Transnet and Rover, can the state government change the limits? Is that who changes that?
The state has to get involved. It's I can't remember what the act is that it was set up under, because Montgomery County pays a portion of it. It's not only us; it's every county in the Commonwealth has this system. So you have to find a way. Yes, and that is something that has been brought up. They were looking to. A couple of years ago, they were looking to dissolve this system and almost go to an Uber type system. So you'd be picked up with a car. You don't know the condition of the car, the driver of the car, if it's going to be clean. And when you're talking about someone like Johnny, who's a cancer patient, we can't risk putting him in a car to take him to a medical appointment as opposed to a bus service that's clean with qualified drivers who have been vetted. So that system died on the vine.
This is one of the last questions here. Can we explain the legal basis for the Hill School's tax-exempt status? Clearly, this also affects the hospitals, community, and public school funding sources.
Nonprofit. There's your answer. Nonprofit.
But the cost to go to the Hill School
Exactly.
a year.
Right. Is what? Well, not only the Hill School.
I mean, I don't know because
Let's talk about this as a whole. Ursinus College, the biggest area in the Collegeville area, no taxes, nonprofit. And I'm going to give you the biggest one of all. In Adams County, everyone knows Gettysburg, right? 85% of Adams County is nonprofit. The residents are paying 15% is what's paying the taxes. So I just brought this up at a community breakfast the other morning saying that we must find a way. If you're charging a tuition of $50,000, $60,000, whether it's the Hill, or it's Penn State, or it's Ursinus College, and you're telling me that you can't pay anything in the tax roll, anything, that's a problem. So why is there not a payment in lieu of taxes?
It's called a pilot,
Yeah.
payment in lieu of taxes.
Right.
That's what the
It's a
Hill,
pilot.
all found, anybody that's a nonprofit like the Hill and the foundations and the Pottstown, they should be paying
Pilots,
Pottstown.
yep. Wow, what the hell is my glasses?
Madam Mayor, come on.
Good evening. Thank you for being up here. I don't mean to put you on the spot, so if you don't know.
Put him on the spot.
So I have a question. Why is this different than when Hahnemann Hospital announced its closure like 8 years ago? And Governor Wolf was able to, with the health department, issue a cease and desist order and made them stay open until their books were reviewed by the health department and there was an alternative solution. Now, they eventually closed because they declared bankruptcy. So it was a Band-Aid, but, and I think Bernie Sanders was also on that. But basically, it's under the theory of you cannot abandon your patients. You are a doctor, you have taken an oath,
Thank you.
You cannot
Mission statement, too.
You cannot discontinue care if it is going to put that patient in danger. You cannot discharge them if they have no money because you don't have an alternate place to put them. So I don't know if Shapiro would be able to do like a cease and desist order. I think when Hahnemann did it, they declared a public state of emergency because all of the overflow to the other hospitals.
So at the time, who ran Hahnemann, who bought Hahnemann Tower,
Oh,
and Hahnemann announced it was closing. They have not announced it closing. So you're a lawyer. I don't have a law degree. But if that's the law where you can go after them, that's the place you go after, do a cease and assist. And again, it has to take the power of the governor. I can't speak for the governor. We here together will say, we want to see this happen. It's the power, if that's the power of the governor. But they have vowed now to the three of us, if I'm not mistaken, that they are not closing. Their intention is not to close.
And we need $2.5 million a year
To save the
for the
cancer
next
ward.
3 to 5 years to save the cancer ward.
they're closing everything but the emergency room. And while they are saying that they can do inpatient surgery, you cannot do inpatient surgery without an ICU.
That's
The
what
nurses
I
We
said.
brought
Please
that
let
up.
one of the nurses please speak up now,
Oh,
please.
that's sorry.
Yes,
Sorry, I
they're
got it.
here.
We brought that up to a mayor.
So did I.
We asked him that,
Can
Mayor.
you please come to the mic so we can hear what needs to be said? This is because this is uncensored. We're not going to hide.
Right, they're not closing everything except, what did you say, the emergency room? Yeah, no, they closing the ICU, they're closing the cancer center, our endoscopy suite, which is where they do like colonoscopies, endoscopies. And that's actually gonna be done in the OR now, instead of the endoscopy suite. They closed a med-surg floor, second floor, which only was a 12-bed unit anyway. And that's kind of being absorbed by the other floors.
So I asked the same question. How do you have surgery without an ICU? I mean, again, not knowing, and you're a nurse, so you can answer that. Their answer was, well, you prepare the patient and then you transfer them out. My argument, and you all heard me say it the day that we rallied in front of the hospital, is so you put a patient who's critical into an ambulance that's going to sit on a highway, or you wait for a helicopter that you pray gets here. In tonight's weather, it might be an issue for the helicopter to land, and you have no ICU. They said, well, we can maintain that patient long enough until we can transfer him. I don't understand that,
Any
again.
critical patients will go to the emergency room.
So they're just moving the services down then?
Because I asked a question, I said,
And then
when
be
you,
transferred out, till they're
yeah.
transported
I
out.
asked him, I said, when you have a code red or a code blue, you know, they have different codes in the hospital.
Right.
Who responds? The ICU nurses and doctors, right?
Now they do, but the emergency room's starting to do that.
Yeah, but I know, I said that ICU responded.
Yes.
And so I said, my understanding that it was told that they were training, ICU nurses were supposed to train the ER nurses, but they told me that was not true. That was unsafe. They weren't doing that.
I don't work in the ER, so I don't
But the reason
know.
why I asked that
We were
question,
told that the ER now is responding to the codes.
okay, the reason why I asked that question, I said, if you close ICU, I can walk in there and drop over with something. Who's going to respond to help me?
Let me ask you
Well,
a question. Can I ask you a question from a nurse's perspective? And I think I know the answer. So an ICU nurse being transferred down to being an emergency nurse, what's the difference? I mean, it's a skill set.
Yeah.
Because I got some nurses up in here. I just want, there's a different skill set.
Yeah.
So
We do have some
conversely,
nurses that are
an
going-
ER nurse now answering code blues, is that something they do in the ER as well?
they
You know
do
what I'm
it
saying? Am I
in their
saying it
own
right?
unit, they do.
Okay.
So is this, and I'm just asking you, is this unique what they're doing, or other hospitals do the same type of thing? I mean, is this healthcare where we're going healthcare?
I have heard that other hospitals have done the same thing. They just become what they call a feeder hospital. So you come
They
here,
feed
you
to the
get
big one.
stabilized, they ship you out.
Okay, but I think we need to get back to keeping it open. I don't know if we're getting off track.
No. Well, they're here.
Yeah, and,
I think. Listen, I think.
I wanna follow up with
Everything that needs
the
to
other
come out
nurse.
needs to come out.
Yeah.
We're going to get back to. We need to keep the infusion department open, so we need $2.5 million.
Yeah.
Over the next 3 to 5 years.
Are you done, the nurses? And then she has another question.
I just have a general question. In that we do a lot with our seniors with the lottery. Is it possible to look towards that end to bring in money?
Good question.
Well, you could look at, remember, if there's only so much money and you begin to take it out of that, that means something else is going to suffer. So
Okay.
I can't say no. I mean, it's possible to do anything. You could take all that money and put it into the hospital system.
No, not all of it.
No, but I mean, you
Right.
could do that, and I'm not being even nasty or sarcastic
No,
about it.
I'm not
I think the issue is, and we saw it in Delco, we pumped $40 million to save that facility, and the $40 million only lasted about a month or two, and it was gone. How much did they tell you they were in deficit so far? They told us to.
They're behind 40 million already in the first 4 months. They're behind 40 million in the first 4 months of this year.
So it's 120 million that they would be set to lose if those numbers kept equal. The issue that we have is how we fund healthcare in America, and our hospital systems are suffering. We're seeing it now in this community. And when we talk about social economics, yes, it's here. It was in Delco. It was in the richest county in the Commonwealth, Chester County, where it was. And it was in the heart of Chester. It wasn't in Coatesville that it closed. It was in the Brandywine, that whole community down there. This is what they're doing, is that they're consolidating, like you said, they're prepping you and then sending you to the bigger facility. Unfortunately, until we can figure out how we do a better reimbursement, how we control the losses that's happening, how we control the cost of drugs. The drug cost is absolutely ludicrous. That was a Bernie Sanders thing that he took on a few years ago. What they're paying for the cost of drugs is insane. And no one should have to worry about that cost of drugs.
Her question is, where does the money from the lottery actually go, pretty much?
The money for the lottery goes to senior services, to senior facilities, to senior, so the senior center, senior care centers, to senior living, to offset senior taxes in some circumstances. You don't pay for SEPTA. So a senior pass on SEPTA, money comes out of the lottery. Senior pass on the service in Pittsburgh, money comes out of the lottery. So wherever the state has a program that senior citizens get a reduced rate is where it's being reimbursed with the lottery money. Right, that's where Medicare and Medicaid comes in and insurance. So yes, you could, yes, but that's what I mean. That's where that lottery money is going to offset all these other programs. So again, as a legislator, there is a full report, and I can get you the report, and you could see it. Yeah, absolutely. Remind me.
Listen, we're going to have to get ready to shut it down in a minute because we are getting late.
We're good.
We're good?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean,
It's
I just
important.
wanna-
It's people's lives at stake.
Listen, I'm just trying
Johnny
to
and I
make
gave a
sure.
whole night to this. I mean,
Yeah.
there's all
One more
kinds of-
question over
This is
here,
what
real
Joe and
quick.
I do.
I'm going to give Justin one more question.
Thank you. So are there any opportunities to do like a municipal bond offering and getting that money funded? Because Montgomery County, right, extends out to like the King of Prussia, Audubon area. I've worked with clients across from Shenandoah, their net worth is, 10 million plus. Is there anything like that that we can look at doing to raise the funds? Because I understand money is needed, right? And we're dealing with the insurance companies who have 3 times the capital levels of banks, right? And they take money in premiums and invest it, and then they bank that profit. So they have more than enough. It's just a matter of getting access to that. So, but with the municipal bond, is that something that you would be able to start for us in our community?
I don't do bonds. We don't do bonds. The state, I don't get involved in that. If the county were to do that, that's a whole separate government. They'd have to decide. Remember, the county is not going to do a bond on a lost leader that they think is going to be a lost leader that they're not going to collect back on, because that's going to be everybody's tax dollars that they'll be accused of. You just took $100 million and threw it away. So I can't speak of how the county would do a bond. I know from my days as a school board director, when we took a bond, there's a payment that we had to pay. So we took $100 million in Springford, and we paid $15 million a year. that we had to pay back toward the bond. We had to know that we were good for that money. The hospital would have to be able to say, we're good for that money. And when the hospital went and showed their full finances to re-evaluate, and I forget what it was that they did, they had to prove that we can pay it back.
Okay.
So the county, and I can't speak again for the commissioners, nor the risk management people that would come out and say, this is a bad leader.
Okay.
The concern that I had, and I think Johnny alluded to it, when I asked about the cancer ward and they came back and said they only had 2,200 patients, which they should have 4,400, it gets back to the chicken or the egg. How do you expect people to come and push those numbers up if you're cutting services and you're not talking about the good things that are happening within your hospital? How are you going to go, or I'm going to go, or Johnny's going to go back when the perception is, oh, I won't go there. It's a terrible place to go.
Right.
So then how do we bring people back? They have failed in that area. Tower Health has failed in investing in our community, not only investing in the community, but talking about the good people who are at the hospital, the nurses who are there, featuring the nurses and the doctors who are in that hospital. I was told, and I don't know if you were told this, and maybe you're aware of it, that they're hiring cardiologists. They've just hired a slew of cardiologists from other hospitals to come here to work to build up the heart ward too. That's something that they were beginning to invest in also. What, again, we keep going back to is they have sworn to the three of us, at least, and to the community, that they are not closing this facility. And they want to get it to a fiscal financial place that they can begin to add back services. Because we're talking about cancer, but let's talk about maternity. Let's talk about—
That started it.
Right. A social economic area where you're asking people, and we heard this, to ride the bus to go to a maternity ward. Let's talk about pediatrics. Where are you supposed to bring your children? When we are 40 miles away from, I'm going to say it, this is Joe Ciresi saying it, the best children's hospital in the United States, where princes bring their children and kings bring their children for service in the city of Philadelphia, that we don't have even a pediatric ward here at this hospital. So there are services that we've got to talk about, and cancer is a huge one, but we got to talk about maternity. We've got to talk about pediatrics, because this part of Montgomery County is growing in leaps and bounds. So where's everyone going to bring their children? Forget about having the kid, which is a problem when you don't have a maternity ward, labor and maternity. Where are you going to bring a kid now when you brought up they break their arm or whatever? Yeah, you can bring them to the emergency room and they can stabilize them and then you can go to King of Prussia. But you've closed the pediatric ward here. Do we have any pediatrics? Peds? No, right? Right, I want to make sure. So what we've talked about here, what Johnny brought up, the 2.5 million, the bishops brought up, that's just to maintain cancer. If we're talking all of it, I don't even know what the number, what would have to be 120 million.
Yeah, my goal is that if Tower can swallow their pride and reach out to other major healthcare and bring them in as a partner to get Pottstown back up, or if the citizens of Pottstown can form their own committee and we reach out to different healthcare networks and ask them, will you be willing to come and invest in the Pottstown Hospital? And would Tower be willing to sell the Pottstown Hospital to that group or sell it back to Pottstown for $1, and then we can go out and have a search committee?
So let me bring up one issue that didn't come up tonight, and I think you're aware of this because we've talked about it. There's another issue that resides in the Pottstown Hospital. When the system was sold, who owned it? What was it? CHS. There was an issue with fire suppression. The law had changed on the way this fire suppression.
Explain fire suppression.
So the system, God forbid there's a fire, to hold the fire, contain it in one area so it didn't spread throughout the building. So whatever was done in that hospital, and I think was it? Oh no, the steel is sprayed. There's a fire suppression system that was sprayed on steel, which was up to code. It was up to all the codes it had to be. When the hospital was sold, they were told, you have to literally, and I'm not exaggerating, remove every wall in the hospital and put a new type of sealant on, because this is the new code. And you have 10 years to do this at a cost of $110 million. So they went, well, there's no way to do this. And we started to fight back and forth, the federal law, the law on this. So the solution that they came up with was you have to take the 7th floor completely offline, take all the walls down, no patient services, nothing can be up there other than physical plant and storage. So now a hospital that's in the red to begin with has just lost a complete floor, and I don't know how many patients are on each floor. You would know that better than I do. Is it 30 or so, 40?
It's
So-
an inpatient psych unit you're
So
telling
now
us?
that unit had to be moved somewhere else in the hospital in order to do it. So this is another big challenge that this hospital has faced that really hasn't been discussed much, that we had just heard recently. The solution that they came up with was to take the 7th floor completely offline, because the only other thing was to close the full facility, rip every wall out, reseal it with extra. And when you talk to our fire department here, they said, this hospital is fine, there's nothing wrong. But the code, and they had a 10-year window. And we've been fighting that for the time since they bought that hospital, say, there's nothing wrong with this facility. We're hearing from our fire people who know fire. I mean, don't you think our fire department would come out and say, oh no, we got to do something? They said, God forbid there's a fire, it would be contained under the way this is. But they upgraded the way the law worked. So now you have a $110 million burden that the facility has to undergo. So I'm not here defending what's happening, but I'm saying that that's another issue, that's a massive issue on this facility.
So let's kind of get ready to wrap up, though, because it is getting
Now we're
late.
wrapping up.
All right, we've got to wrap up. But what do we do? How do we begin to strategize on how to get this $2.5 million that we need? Because at least we want to keep the infusion unit open. Because here's the narrative. We got one group that won't cross a line for
Right.
transportation, and which is really absurd to me, because we're not worried about the condition of people. So the system doesn't lend itself to care, right? We've seen that over and over again. What do we do now? What can we do? Do you have any idea where we can go to get $2.5 million for the next 3 to 5 years? Because Tower Health told us that they would split the baby with us.
Yes. So I began the process from what I can do. I go back to my side of the aisle, I'll say, and the governor, and say, this is what we're being told from Tower Health. I want to see this cancer ward remain where it is. They're willing to put the investment in if we're willing to put the investment in. So we pressure as much as we can. Johnny brought up about our foundations and about our charitable funds that are out there. We begin the conversation as a community for anyone that serves on the foundation to go to the foundation and say, is there anything that you would be willing? Because that fund was from hospital funds, to say, can we take some of these funds? We do have some of the larger foundations that reside in the greater Philadelphia area, probably one of the biggest in the nation being Pew. Is there something that we can go to them and say? But we also need the hospital to come with us, because as a community, we could unite and try and do this, but these big foundations are going to want to see the big one come and say, we'd like to see this happen. We're willing to give $2.5 million. Would you give the rest?
So the ball is in their court when we start to move in this direction. Is that correct?
The ball is in their court as much as it can be. From my perspective, I'm going to say to all of you now, and like I said, I talked to Kate at 4 o'clock. Oh, no, sorry. She called me back at 5:30. I had called her this afternoon to talk to her about the $2.5 million, because I found out about that yesterday. And I said, I'd like this really to look into this. And she said, okay, we're going to go back and talk to our team about it. I will reach out to Secretary Arkush, who we all know was our commissioner, was the head of the Montgomery County Commissioners, to see if we can get her support for this.
I called her, she never called me back.
Yeah, and I don't know if our Congresswoman, if there's anything, it can't hurt to speak to our members of Congress who are also aware of where this hospital is. And understand that this had gone down here. Our Congresswoman is definitely aware of this. I can't speak for our senators because we never hear from our senators.
Yeah, and that's disturbing, because I reached out to Senator McCormick. But I want to know about if we can keep the ICU at the beds they have now. I don't know why they got to close the ICU. The math doesn't add up. It's not just a cancer center. I think Tower can keep the ICU.
They're claiming,
Well, they can keep 4 or 5 beds.
one of the things I heard from, well,
They got to do that.
one of the things they did
If
say
we're
about
fighting for them
ICU,
for this. It's not to interrupt,
No,
but
no,
we're
I-
fighting to get money for them. They should give something back in return, just with the ICU.
They said to me, 'cause
Negotiation.
I said about ICU, I said, look, they said what they're investigating now is a step-down ICU, whatever the different categories of ICU are. I have no idea. Again,
Well,
you could
some of
speak to
the
that.
some of the thing they talked about the ICU as well was the equipment and the maintenance of that equipment.
Right.
And technology is very expensive as well. So I don't know. I don't know all the logistics and all what you do with all that, but nonetheless, somebody else will be able to help us with that.
What's sustainable? We already have a crisis in finding nurses. A national crisis.
What's the actual long-term solution if we're just on it's a catch-22? This is a cycle that's not going to end. And I think you guys can give me a
Well, I think right now, I would love for us to start thinking long term. I think as a community, we have to do something long term. But
Short term.
we have to do something now
Yeah.
to at least try to keep the infusion unit open. Yeah, but it's closer. But the immediate danger that we're dealing with now is how are we going to get our cancer patients, those that are recovering from cancer, right? How are we going to get them to a hospital if transportation is going to be an issue? Because who's going to pay for that, right? So if we can get some donors, put some pressure somewhere from somebody. I mean, the Hill School has a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying, because they have to invest. Somebody has to invest. Their kids are going to have to go to a hospital eventually, somewhere, right? So we have to figure out where and who do we touch. You said you're already talking to certain people.
Well, yeah, right. I've
Yeah.
done the
So
government
you
rep.
told us who we needed to talk to,
Yes.
correct? Okay. All right. So
I think there's another thing that we didn't discuss here. We are within 6 or 7 miles of a nuclear power plant. There needs to be a medical facility if there's a crisis at the nuclear power plant.
That's why we need the ICU.
And that was something I brought up is there nothing under the NRC, under federal law,
Thank you, Joe.
that says we have to have a facility within our realm to do this? You know,
Which goes back to the mayor, the governor.
well, that
Cease
goes
and
back.
desist.
That's why, but that's why I don't think that they're closing the. Right, it has to be some sort of medical facility where they can bring, God forbid, of a disaster, the people to a facility. About 6 years ago, roughly, maybe 5, I could get it wrong, we designated areas for Trauma 1. And one of my big arguments was the closest trauma center to us is Lehigh Valley, I guess. Trauma 1, is it? Reading and Lehigh? Or Philadelphia? And what was it? Grandview is a Trauma 1 too? Yeah. Oh, okay. But it was, I argued, why is Pottstown not right next to a nuclear power plant? Why are we not right next to the highway where every day we see accidents? Every single one of us every day sees something happen on 422. And it was a huge fight of why not, because of the funding. The funding, these hospitals have the resources. So to Victoria's question of long-term, we are facing a crisis beyond crisis. And everybody in this room and in this Commonwealth needs to face it. What you brought up for that bill is important for this community to be involved in and to understand that when a bill runs in one chamber but doesn't run in the other chamber, it goes nowhere.
That's right.
When a bill runs in a chamber of something that we should have supported and I didn't support it, you should be on the phone with me going, are you supporting it and why aren't you supporting it? As local representatives, I'm sitting here with you and I had no idea what questions you're going to come up with, and I'm fine with that, or anybody else. We have a moral obligation, an obligation to every one of you to be able to speak to you in an intelligent manner and answer your questions. But we have bills that have sat at the door of the Senate over and over and over again.
This one right here.
We have an issue with senior facilities now where we're seeing rents go through the roof. And a bill that we passed in the House with bipartisan support, that all they had to do was walk it down the hallway to the Senate committee, run it through committee, and the governor said, I will sign it into law today. It still hasn't been signed into law. And what has it done to our manufacturer communities where seniors live at a lower income? It has tripled their rent for one inaction that happened. So these have consequences. The big, beautiful bill is a big, beautiful disaster. And we have not yet to see the full-fledged consequences of what's about to happen to this nation. That's where I stand on this. I think you all need to be involved in what Johnny's saying. You need to be involved in these. And yes, the power of the voting is important, but also understanding the issues, because you still have to fight for things that are important. And I need to hear from you, and I do hear from a lot of you, almost all of you, who I probably personally know, and most of you have my cell phone number, on issues, and I'm fine with that. And that's what we should be here for. But this crisis that we're facing, and I'm not downplaying it because I'm a member of the community, no matter how you look at it, is throughout the Commonwealth. The only thing we're blessed with is, yes, we are 40 miles from probably the best healthcare in the nation. When you get out into the middle of the state, there's no hospitals for 200-300 miles. But who's blocking these bills? The legislators that live in those areas, which I don't understand. They blocked a bill for nurses.
Yeah.
On the beds. What is it? How many nurses? How many patients? One representative blocked that bill from running in the House. One, because she was the chair, and said there's no issues in hospitals. We don't need to have patient ratios. So I want to, and I guess you're wrapping up, so I'll just say I want to thank you for this.
I'm going to give Johnny your
Johnny goes first.
last
Johnny,
comment.
go
You
ahead.
got 2 minutes.
I got 2 minutes. Okay, some of the things that we talked about that we want the community to know: help people sign up for Medicaid, pressure our elected officials, foundations, and others to help financially, help correct misinformation, persuade the community to not give up on the hospital. But this bill that Joe and them signed, there's 4 things I'm going to run off real fast. That if this bill, the Senate would have voted on it, they would have to the hospital would have to let the community know the estimated number of patients gaining or losing access to health care services at the hospital due to the general hospital closure or significant impact closure, the estimated number of low-income, senior, minority, and Medicare medical assistance eligible patients gaining or losing access to health care, the names and addresses of 3 nearest hospitals, and how the public and private transportation is going to get these patients there. So we got to vote, and we need to call Tracy Pennicock up, and we need to call every senator that we know and tell them to push this bill, because otherwise, and also in that bill, Tower Health would have to have public meetings with the community to discuss why they're closing. And the NAACP has, somebody wants to speak, but the NAACP has been supporting Tower Health. We invited them when they first came to Pottstown. Tower Health and NAACP met at the community college, and we welcomed them to the community. We fed them during the pandemic, each floor, all the nurses, and we gave them masks. So we have been supporting the hospital, which is not, I'm not jumping on the bandwagon because I have cancer. My family and I have supported Relay for Life for 30 years. Before I had cancer, we have donated our time and money, and that was a kickoff to our summer. So it's not like, I just want everybody to know Johnny's not jumping on this because I got cancer. I've been dedicated and fighting and giving money to cancer for 30 plus 40 years.
There is one other bill that.
You have 2 minutes, Joe. We just don't have the time. I'm sorry.
I'm 30 seconds. There's a Borowski bill also similar to this bill that talks about high equity not being allowed to buy hospital systems and blocking them out of that so it doesn't become a for-profit industry and they only look at profit. So I just wanted to bring that up. So that's what the bill I thought originally you were alluding to.
Well, what were you saying?
What is the bill that you said we have to call the Senate about?
It's House bill. What is that?
Well, how about we start to get all that information out on our Facebook page?
House Bill number 832.
We're going to put all this information out. Let me ask you a question. Are you willing to come back out here? Can we have another conversation?
Yeah, whatever.
Okay, good.
You would just tell us.
That's what we're going to do. And he said whatever? He didn't mean that? He's a busy man?
No, whatever he wants.
Listen, I'm so glad.
You told me we were coming
listen,
out.
tonight, listen, there's another issue that we have to deal with, and we got to close out. All right, we got to close out. But we need to help people sign up for Medicaid. We need to help people sign up for Medicaid, so that's something else that we can work together as a community to find out how do we get to the people that need help signing up for Medicaid, because we need to get it up from 5% to about 10 to 15%. And that helps to help get some different reimbursement as it relates to prescriptions and medication, okay? So listen, tonight, thank you so much for coming out tonight. This is what we call Heart of the City. And everything that we'll ever talk about will be uncensored. We're not afraid of anything. We're here to serve the people in our community. We want to thank State Representative Joe Ciresi for coming out. Appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you for taking the time. To Johnny Corson, the president of NAACP in the area, and to all of you and everyone that is watching us live. If you would do me a favor, between now and the next 30 seconds, I need you to go to Heart of the City Pottstown Facebook page and begin to like, subscribe. We'll have our YouTube page up next, but we are going to do more meetings like this because look at all the things we don't know. Look at all the things that we don't know. And we're going to have people that do more than just get photo ops. We got to do something more than just photo ops. I mean, you know, we taking pictures. It's good to take a picture with Joe, but we don't have no action, right? So there's got to be some people that start to help us to put a plan together. The Medicaid, we need to start to get the plan together to try to get the $2.5 million. And that's just a short-term goal. But we have a lot of work to do. All right, and we got to become more involved. So as a community, we must also be held accountable. Because while we're saying what they didn't do, maybe we didn't do some things too as well. Because we need to be more involved. Borough council meetings, we need to be more involved when it's time for these political discussions to take place, instead of just assuming that somebody that represents us other than him is going to be able to speak up for us. That make good sense? I want to thank the mayor for being here tonight. Thank you so much, Mayor Stephanie. And I don't know, are there any other guest pastors here, anybody that's here that I missed? All right. Well, everybody else, listen. The nurses are here from, yeah, come on, stand up so we can greet you.
They are heroes.
I want to thank Heart of God Family Worship Center. Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for your time. I'm Bishop Michael Anthony. If you are in the area, please come join us this Sunday. Our service starts at 11:15. We'll be excited and very open to see you hang out with us on a Sunday morning. And before I go, I want to do something, and it's my church, so I can do it, but I want to pray for you. Is that all right? Father, I just thank you right now. By the blood of the Lamb, Lord, I give you glory and praise. For those, God, that are suffering from different ailments and different sicknesses, we know you to be a healer. And God, what medical fields can't do for us now, we need you to step in like never before. But Lord, also grant us wisdom and understanding that we might be able to navigate through the system to be able to possess the things that need to take possession. I thank you for everyone that's represented here tonight. I thank you for their traveling mercies. I thank you that they reach their destinations safely. And we'll give you praise in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you.